You really don't want to miss today's show. All this stuff is in my wheelhouse now. We'll let everybody else play catch-up. Now, before I get into what I really want to get into, which is why John Roberts did what he did, I think we figured it out here. On Friday, having looked at the court's various opinions on Obamacare for a third time, I drew the following conclusion. And by the way, I don't say I predicted. I don't predict. I draw conclusions based on reason, based on the information, and I apply my experience to it. Sometimes I'm right, sometimes I'm wrong. It's not a prediction, it's an analysis, and then a conclusion. And I want you to listen to this, because I could tell this was going on. Cut one, go. I think it is now abundantly clear, having now read this over 200 pages of opinions 3 times, that the court is not a happy place. I don't think there's any doubt that John Roberts switched sides at the 11th hour, that he stabbed the dissenters in the back. I don't think there's any doubt when you look at what the dissent is saying about Ginsburg's opinion. She's concurring in the majority. They speak of her as a dissenter. That Roberts' change of heart came rather late in the game, and the 4 dissenters were left holding the bag and did the best they could to respond. That's why, in my humble opinion, I don't know anything firsthand, obviously. I'm trying to use logic. That's why the 4 dissenters didn't join Roberts on the Commerce Clause, either because they've had enough of his games or they didn't have time. But the fact of the matter is, they didn't. Now, you'll hear lawyers say in response to me, but it's still 5 justices, so if you're going to take up a case like this, should it happen again? It doesn't have to happen again because Roberts showed them a way out. He concocted one. But that aside, you can still count on 5 justices. Somebody tells you that. All right, let's stop here because it goes on. But my point was, as you heard, those 4 dissenters were not happy. Quite the contrary. And when they refused to concur in or join with Roberts on any part of his decision, including the Commerce Clause, including the necessary and proper provisions, it was obvious to me that this was incredibly unique, that something was wrong. And now we have Jan Crawford, who is a superb journalist, at CBS News Sunday, reporting based on first-hand witnesses, I suppose, as follows. Cut 2, go.
I am told by 2 sources with specific knowledge of the court's deliberations that Roberts initially sided with the conservatives in this case and was prepared to strike down the heart of this law, the so-called individual mandate, of course, that requires all Americans to buy insurance or pay a penalty. But Roberts, I'm told by my sources, changed his views, deciding to instead join with the liberals. And he withstood, I'm told by my sources, a month-long desperate campaign by the conservative justices to bring him back to the fold. And that campaign was led, ironically, by Justice Anthony Kennedy. And why that's ironic is because it was Justice Kennedy that conservatives feared would be the one most likely to defect. But their effort, of course, was unsuccessful. Roberts did not budge.
And then there's this. Cut 3, go.
Justices do change their mind. There is precedent for that. One justice told me that, surprisingly enough, it happens about once a term. But in a case of this magnitude, with so much on the line, conservatives believed they had Roberts' vote in this case, and there's quite a lot of anger within the hallways of the Supreme Court right now.
I could tell, as I said in the earlier cut you heard, it's not a happy place. And the way the justices express themselves is through their opinions. And if you've read hundreds and hundreds of Supreme Court opinions, as I have, maybe thousands by now, when you look at little indications, little signals being sent to the public, like on the Commerce Clause aspect, where Roberts was forced to writing for the chief, He was not writing for the majority. He was not writing for, quote, the opinion of the court, unquote. You look at those things, and it does draw your attention. Now, you should follow me also, not only on the radio, of course, but on my social sites, because I put this information out when I figure it out, as I did on Friday rather early. And by the way, I want to welcome IQ 106.9 FM in Philadelphia, our new affiliate there, my hometown. Welcome. Hold on tight. Hold on tight. There's nothing like this program anywhere. And if there is, it's because people are copying. Stick with me. And Mr. Producer tells me this month is my 10th year on radio. Is that correct? 10 years, starting on Sundays for 2 hours without pay. I did that for 14 months. So, interesting times. Now, it was abundantly clear then, and it's abundantly clear now, that Roberts is following a different drummer. Ask yourself, as I asked myself, how can somebody who for all these years appeared to be an originalist, somebody who would follow the Constitution after all these years, how could he do this? I mean, the guy's not dumb, even though the opinion was dumb. Surely Roberts must understand that the Constitution protects us from tyranny. Surely he must understand that the purpose of the Constitution is ordered liberty, to protect individual sovereignty and a free economy and the civil society. Surely he must understand that Obamacare is the most monstrous piece of legislation, probably in half a century, maybe more, and that it empowers a massive bureaucracy and a handful of politicians to interfere with how we live. I mean, it goes beyond health care. As I've said on the air long before the oral argument, and we said in our briefs for Landmark Legal Foundation to the court, this law changes the relationship between the individual and the federal government. Now, ladies and gentlemen, the law was upheld as a constitutional matter. I hear it said all over the place by ignoramuses of all sorts. I mean, well, it gives us an opportunity. An opportunity for what? Well, now we can call it a tax and then wrap it around Obama's neck. We can call it a tax when we just spent 2 years in court saying it's not a tax? Yes, but Obama, we can argue, said he wouldn't raise taxes, and the court said it's a tax. Therefore, Obama's raised taxes. So now I'm supposed to cite the very justice and the very decision that is reprehensible, unconscionable, as a matter of fact, as justification for my political argument? Look, I told my good friend Neil Cavuto on Fox News a couple hours ago, we can call it a tax, a penalty, or a cucumber. The point is, this law is a disaster. Why don't we take on the substance of this law and explain to senior citizens that they're going to lose $500 billion out of Medicare without reforming Medicare, and explain to young people that they're being called losers and they're being tapped, their resources, to help fund this program. Why don't we tell the American people what's in store for them? Long lines, subpar care, DMV-like treatment, and on, massive tax increases or penalty increases or whatever we want to call them, lots and lots of cucumbers. But here's the problem. The damage to the Constitution cannot be repealed by some statute. John Roberts threw the door wide open on the Constitution. Whatever clause he uses really doesn't matter to me. It's all phony. It's all written in invisible ink, what he's done and what others do, to massively increase the federal government's power against you. What do you think the point of taxes is? You think it's just to raise revenue? No. It's to coerce you. It's to punish successful people. It's to stop you from eating certain types of food. It's to stop you from buying certain types of automobiles, and on and on and on. Well, the tax is de minimis today. So what? Congress knows how to increase taxes. It's what they do all the time. And that's what they'll do this time. And repealing Obamacare, that won't be easy. It's doable, but it won't be easy. Romney says he's going to repeal it on day one. No, he's not. The president can't repeal on day one a statute. He may sign some waivers and do these other sorts of things. But we have to have big numbers of conservatives in the House, especially in the Senate, and win the presidency, and hope they all stand firm. And one other thing. Do you think all these left-wing groups are going to lie down for this? They'll bring lawsuits, the same way they brought lawsuits when people were trying to defund Planned Parenthood or Acorn or whatever. They're going to make all kinds of claims about vested rights and equal protection and all the rest of it. They'll be frivolous, but so much of what the courts do today is frivolous. So when we come back, we're going to tap into John Roberts' mindset. I think you're going to find this fascinating, and I think it's going to answer a lot of your questions. It's not going to make you happy, but I think it'll answer a lot of your questions. We'll be right back.
Mark Levin.